Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the blazingly fast websites using Azure Static Web Apps and Azure Functions presentation. My name is Martin KULOV, and I'm going to now to drive you how you can create really fast websites with the built-in functionality of Azure. And not so much of that we'll be talking about Microsoft technologies today. Actually, we'll be talking about JavaScript and Python with the help of GitHub workflows. So just in brief, because this is a short presentation after all, I just want to give you a short introduction what it's all about. We have something that is called static websites. These are websites which have static resources only. They have HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, nothing else. Unfortunately, we cannot put any server-side code in the static websites up to now, until at least. And the benefit of using static websites is that they can utilize global content delivery network, which is in short CDN. And with the help of global delivery network, our content can be much closer to the end users, and this way can be delivered much faster. Some examples of hosting platforms, global platforms for hosting static websites are GitHub Pages, Azure Blob Storage, and Azure Static Web App that we are going to see now. The downside, as I told you, with GitHub Pages and Azure Blob Storage is that they cannot host any server-side code. So you can only host your static resources. And today we're going to see how you can host your server-side code using Azure Static Web App and its integration with Azure Functions. So Azure Static Web App provides hosting of static files, as the name implies, and it uses the global CDN content delivery network from Azure, which has, I don't know, at least a few tens of data centers all across the world. You can also use custom domain to set up access to your website, which we're not going to see today. And you can set up a free SSL certificate that gets renewed automatically. So whenever the certificate expires, it gets renewed for you. You don't have to do that. It also has a built-in security and authentication so that you can authenticate your users. And also it has role-based authentication and integrated security for accessing the resources. Then we also have server-side routing. That means that you can specify routes in a JSON file where you want to redirect each resource to. And the most important thing that we're about today is integrated API with CICD. So what does it mean, API? It means that we can host server-side code within the static website. It's actually not hosted in the static website itself, but it has a pretty good integration. And when you deploy a static web app with API, it creates Azure Functions for you on behind, which you can securely call with integrated user and role-based authentication. It also has seamless routing, so there is no need for cross-region request routing to be specified. And it supports Azure Functions version 3. However, keep in mind that it's still up to date. The integration with Azure Functions API supports only Node.js, .NET Core, and Python 3.8 at least, at most. I mean, All right, so with that, and for one last thing to say about Azure Functions is that you can also implement Azure Functions with its built-in support for HTTP triggers and bindings. That means that your API can be called by a HTTP post request, and it can bind to some storage sources like Azure Blob and other Azure resources. So before going to the demo, let me just briefly tell you what the CICD actually means with Azure Static Web Apps. It supports, when you create an Azure Static Web App, it will automatically create for you GitHub workflow. This workflow will basically take your static website and the included API, will build the website and will publish it to a location in Azure. Then you can access it, as we discussed, with integrated security and built-in authentication. When you have some changes to the repo, the integrated work will create a new staging environment for you. And then after you're done with your changes, you can merge all of your code to the production environment. So this all comes built in for you, and it's pretty cool. That's why I decided to show you. Keep in mind that Azure Static Web Apps is still in preview, so we don't know how much it will cost. Supposedly, it's not going to cost that much, just because that it will use static Azure static resources like Azure Blobs. So can pretty much be confident it will be much cheaper that you can actually host your website on a WordPress hosting or something like that. So in the demo, what we're going to see today, we're going to create a static website using GridSum, which is a framework based on Vue.js, and we'll create the static web app in Azure. Then we'll create an Azure function in Python, and we'll call the Python API. And we'll see how the whole CI/CD story works. All right, so let's go to the demo. I'm just going to. So first, I will open a command prompt, and I already have GridSum installed. GridSum you can find here. Sorry, just a second. Find GridSum installation here for gridsum.org. And after you get that, all right, we'll go to my small shortcuts here. We'll go to my other drive. We'll go to the repo sites folder, and then we'll create a static website, which I will call static web app demo. With the built-in with the GridSum CLI, I specified I would like to create a GridSum project based on the GridSum starter briefly. It's a starter project that has some built-in pages, so we can see the benefits of using GridSum immediately. You can find it here. It's pretty useful to get some initial idea how GridSum works. So let me go back to my command prompt. Here I will create the static web app demo, and I will specify the Git repository where it can download the source files. It will take some seconds. Let me just close this browser that's been behind. All right. I'm sorry, my machine got pretty slow, but that's due to, I guess, due to the streaming. I'll just open this so you can see it. All right, so now it goes and clones the repo, and it will put the project, it will create the project in this static web app demo folder. So everything I need to run the static website will be there. The static website does not have any API, Azure Function API yet. We'll add this additionally. Let's see how this will go. It's getting pretty slow though. All right, while we wait for this, I will go now and I will go now in GitHub and we'll create a repo. I'll create a repo where I can push my new project. And this will be static web app demo repo. Create it public. And we'll just go and create the repository. Okay, so now I will need to, in my folder where I create the project, I will need to add the origin repo. It's still sitting here. Oh, this one is pretty slow. Then what I'm going to do now, I don't know why is it so slow. It was not supposed to be that slow. Let me fall back then to something that I already did. Okay, so here I have this static website demo. I create it. No, static demo 2. Has my Gridson project already created. For some reason, this one gets extremely slow. So in here, I have sorry, and remotes. I was looking for remotes. Okay, so this one now points here, but I would like to new repo. So what I have now is the Gridson project, which I'm going to push to my new repo that I just created. And I'll make this as a origin 2. Just get different, so we can be sure that this goes to the right repo. Okay, then what I'm going to do now is git status, so we can see that all projects are checked in on branch main. And now I'm going to push everything origin to main. And this should fill all my get some static website. It should push it to the repo I just created here. All right, so here it is. Now it's not really functional because the project, it has the source files, but it's not built yet. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to create a new static web app, and I'll come here. I have my resource group here in Azure. and I can create it with by selecting static web app. All right, so create. You can see it's still in preview, so there's no pricing yet announced, but you can use the functions as they are. So I will name this static web app demo, and I'll select that I want to be hosted in West Europe. It will use the content delivery network, but still as a web app where it will be hosted, I choose to be in West Europe, and you can see still the static web apps are still in preview, so the number of data centers that you can select is pretty limited. So in here, I need to authorize with GitHub in order for the static web app to access my repo. Okay, I'll give it control. And now it will allow me to select GitHub organization and then repository, which we just created, and that was static web app demo. And I select branch main. So with build presets, I select that I want to have a custom preset, and in here I select that the app is located in the root, the API is located in the API folder, and then artifact location. This is something that we're not going to use, but I'll just put this here. Create the web app now. And with the click of a button, we have the web app created. So it will take just a short amount of seconds. Until then, I'm going to close the previous window that did not complete. It completed now, but okay, I'll just leave it as it is here. So the static web app is now created. I'll go to the resource. You see, it was pretty fast. And in here, I can open this URL. And I can see that, hopefully, my static web app is live and waiting for your content. That's because the static web app is here, but nothing is hosted yet. So what we need to do is actually make sure that the GitHub workflow has completed. So I will go to my repo here, and in Actions, I can see that there's a workflow created for me by the app, and it's now building. It's now working with all the steps. So you get this integration with GitHub automatically. You saw that I did not do any actions or workflows created here. It was provided for me by the static web app in Azure, and it's now building and completing the job. It will take just a few short amount of seconds. Until then, just because of lack of short time, I will proceed now of opening the project with Visual Studio Code. See how my computer goes then. I apologize for the slow response here, but obviously screen sharing takes too much resources on my computer. So this is the Gridson project that I have. And now what I would like to do is to create an API. So basically, what do I need to do now? While we wait for the job to complete on the back, I'll go here on the command palette in Visual Studio Code, and I create Azure Functions, you need to have Azure Functions add-in plugin installed to Visual Studio Code. When you have it and when you open the palette, you can type functions, and it will create, it will show all the different possibilities to use, different options to use functions. Then we will create a new project in here in Visual Studio Code. It will take some time. To initialize and show me the options of how I can create my Visual Studio, my Azure function. Okay, so it says now choose a folder where you want to create the Azure function, and it's here. And I want to use Python. Remember, JavaScript, Python, and C# are supported right now with the static web apps. So I select Python, and I can select a version of the Python interpreter, which will supposedly show here. Okay. And I want it to be triggered by HTTP request. So this we will name something like HTTP trigger 1. Let's not be too creative here. And authorization, I will create a function level authorization. That means that my site should be able to call that function. I don't want to override this. No. Okay. This should not happen here. Actually, these files should have landed in a different folder. Okay, let's give it some time. The thing is that these files should have been added to the API folder, which somehow I missed to create in the demo. But let's see. So in here, while this is creating a Python virtual environment and preparing my project, I'll come back here in the workflow, and we can see that this is now completed. So my static website should be built and published now. And I can go here and just refresh the page, and we can see this is the initial project, the template project that I used, which is called Briefly, and this is the result of calling it from static web apps. If we get the the page tools now to see how fast page speed tools. See how fast the website is loading. I can give the URL here, and also let me remind you that these URLs that we have published the static web app here can be customized, so you can use your own. And using the page insight, you can see how fast this website is responding. It's pretty good index, right? Because it's only static. I'm sorry, it's only static web page. So what we have published the website. We have a CICD that will take care of new changes automatically, and we'll publish them. And last thing I'm going to show you for briefly of shorter than 5 minutes, because I'm really going over my time. I will try to fix this mess that I've created just now with the API, because we need an API folder. Or maybe I can just start it over from scratch, and I'll just say discard all my changes. Just that it's so slow now. Okay. So we don't need this. This is a virtual environment for Python. Now we should not have any changes. All right, so let's try this again. Let's give it one more try. And no. I need a folder here, which is called API. And within this folder, which should be selected, and it's pretty kind of tricky here, selection, because it's empty. And now let's try to create a new project. Select the folder that will contain, well, okay, well, probably I need to browse it. Okay, now Python, then again the Python version. When that shows up, okay, HTTP trigger one, and authorization by function. And now let's give it a second. Okay, so here it is. Oh, good. Now we have all the sites, all the files for the Python Python API created in the API folder. It needs to be API folder because when we created the CICD, we explicitly said that when we created the static web app function here, not the function resource here, we specified that we want the API to be in the API folder. This can be changed actually if you go to the actions and you can view the workflow file that was created for us. And in here we can see that we can change the API location if we mess this up at some point. Anyway, let me now see the coolness of the CI/CD. Okay, why is that this started here? Okay, let's see what happened now with, okay, so no, it's not running, it was just cache. Let's see what happened here. It's creating virtual environment. It's creating a lot of files. It should be ready within a minute, something like that. So what I want to do now is to push all my changes to region 2 because it just created the API. And actually within the API, I will just leave it as it is, simple as it is, just to, we need to pass it a name. And you can see this is a Python code. We can pass a name in the query string, and it will print out the name back to us. This is the whole function. But we just want to make sure that we can now call it from the static website. We can call the API, integrate it with security and all the stuff. So let's try to publish this Azure function. So what we need to do is I'm now going to create a new branch, because this is how new changes should go to the origin site, right? Create a new branch, and I'll check out all these two serverless. I'll name this serverless because Azure Functions, are basically serverless technology. So you can see here I'm now in the serverless branch, and I will stage all these changes. And then I'll say serverless as a commit message. I know it's not very meaningful, but let's go ahead. Okay. Now I need to push it, and I just want to make sure that I will push to region 2, because remember we created a new region because of the initial slow project creation. So at the moment when I push this, it will go to my repo, and then nothing will happen actually at that point of time. But let's wait for a second just for the push to complete. Okay, it's done now. And as you can see here, if I refresh the page, everything is good. The action is not running, but we can see on the code section there is a serverless branch was pushed, and we can do a pull request. So with the pull request, I can say, okay, now let's create a pull request to main. And just by clicking create pull request, the static web app bot will kick in, and it will start some checks, GitHub checks for me. What it's going to do now, it's going to build the static website with the new API I've just created, Python API, and it will create a new environment, staging environment, where I can see the changes. It will take a very short time. This is running on the server, not on my computer, so it will be much faster. So I just want to show you the initial URL that our project was published. It was at mango-c-0a blah, blah, blah. So when the pull request, when the check completes and the pipeline, the workflow kicks in, it will actually create for us a new URL where the website is hosted, which will serve as a staging environment. When at some point when we merge the pull request to main, then this staging environment will be destroyed, and we can be safe that nothing's left behind. Also, additional benefit is that you can add more commits to this pull request. If you got something wrong or you want to improve the pull request, then the Azure Static Apps workflow will be kicked in again and again, and you can see the changes on the staging environment. Okay, so let's do a refresh to see if it's actually done. It should show automatically, but for some reason it might not be refreshed. So it's still working. We can see the details actually. You can see that it's actually has checked out my branch, and it's now building and deploying everything. There's a lot of information inside, so we're not going to spend time on reviewing that, but it should be ready pretty fast. Let's wait for it here. We'll give it some time. Any questions, by the way? Okay, so there's some delay between receiving questions and me speaking. So I will wait for a few more seconds for questions while the CICD is running. Let's see how it goes. Okay, so it's almost done. In the back, this job is using something that's called Oryx build agent, which actually makes sure to publish the static website and the Functions API. Okay, so it should be more or less done any second now. Okay, so here it is. All checks have passed, so the project has been compiled and published successfully. Not compiled, published successfully. And within, as you can see now, just at the moment we have a new environment. There's a Git Actions bot, which provides us with a new staging URL. Please note the -1 here. So within here, we should be able to see our API. So this is the static website again, but the API, the API itself is located here, which is API./HTTP trigger. I think we named that. Let's see again, one more time. API HTTP trigger 1, and we need to pass a name like Martin. And boom, hello Martin. This is HTTP triggered function executed successfully. Python function, we should explicitly say here. It's a Python function that we can now call from our website without any course issues, because it's the API is hosted on the same URL, as you can see, as the static website. So at some point when, as I told you, at some point when we are happy with everything we have done, we can merge the pull request back to the main branch, and a new CICD will kick in, and this new environment will be destroyed, so the changes will be here. At this point, they are still not trigger. They're still not available here. Let me copy this. But they will become available. Okay, so we will not be waiting for this because I'm pretty much out of my time. So yeah, as you can see on the production environment, the API is still not here, but it will get there as soon as the CICD, I'm sorry, CICD on the main branch actually completes. All right, so that was it. I hope that made some interesting thoughts on your mind on how to implement static websites with serverless technology in integrated API functions. So I will wait for a minute now to wait for some questions and eventually to compensate for the delay in the presentation and streaming. Thank you. Thanks, Nicoletta. All right, I don't see any more questions. So have a good day and you can enjoy the rest of the sessions. Goodbye.